Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Welcome to the Ballology app Ultimate Demo. Trusted by leaders in the game. Ballology is a player development platform built for coaches and players alike. You can expect live shot tracking, workout libraries, and AI insights. You can easily chart team shooting drills in practice or in training sessions. Track all of those shots using an iPhone or an Android device in real time. You can view your team's performance through a video archive or by using our shot charts. After every shooting workout, take a look at your breakdown by viewing your percentages and your shot locations. Let's take a deeper look to learn how to make the most out of the Ballology app. Let's see how you measure up in the Ballology Skills Assessment, where you can test your shooting skills versus other shooters worldwide. Navigate to Ballology AI, where you can ask any question to get answers in real time for smarter training.
Make that footwork a little more sharp.
Coaches or players can create custom workouts in just minutes. Hit your on-court skills or basketball IQ or even strength and conditioning. It can be done on the Ballology app. Compete with everything you do on the Ballology app through our workout leaderboards. Elevate your game with the Ballology app. Download it for free today.
How long coaching total? Because I did a little bit of research on you, and I've seen the last 3 decades, but how long have you been coaching?
This is my 37th year, I believe. 37.
37th year
Yeah.
at so many different levels and in different roles, and you've been around so many different coaches. The culture word, I almost wanted to go right past it and just say standards or pillars or something like that, but you've seen so many programs run by so many different people. How do standards drive performance within a team?
Well, I think it's essential. I think all really good programs have pillars or a foundation that they base everything on. And I think it's different at different places and maybe the level or maybe just where you are in your coaching situation, whether you're a young coach or older coach or whatever the case is. But yeah, I had an old football coach when I first got in. He said, "Coach," he'd always call it thumpity thump. He said, "Coach, how's that thumpity thump going?" I'm going, "It's going good, Coach." And he said, "Hey, Coach, you got a lot of rules?" And of course, I was first year coach, and I said, "Yeah, I got a whole list of them right here, Coach." And of course, he looked at me and goes, "Well, you need to take this to your best player and have him scratch out the ones that he can't do and roll with that." Anyway, but no, I think you got to have things that you believe in that have worked for you. And I've been so blessed to be around either friends or worked for or worked with great coaches, from Mark Wendell. Not a lot of people, just phenomenal. And I spent a year with Mark at North Mesquite. And then Jim Sagona, which is a guy that, very few people give much recognition to. And he's a great coach. And Bubba Jennings, got to work with Bubba for the last 3 years, and of course friends with, Jeff Evans. Jeff's one of my better friends, and then Rick Cooper at West Texas A&M, and the guy I work for now, Natter Dowley. He's, not a lot of people know about him because he's a guy that is just kind of flies under the radar, but he's really, really good. So I've asked my wife before, I'd said, worked for all these great coaches or friends with all these great coaches, you would think it rubbed off more, but it really hadn't. So anyway, but
that's an interesting thing that football coach did say, and I know, we laugh about it now, and it's a funny statement, but there's probably a little bit of truth to that. One, about having too many rules. The more rules you have, probably the less freedom that players will be able to either feel or play with.
Right.
And you probably put yourself in a box quite a bit with a ton of rules. But then the great activity is even for the standards or culture that you're trying to create, take it to your best player or group or your leaders and just ask them, what do you guys think of this?
Yeah.
Is this something that you can get behind? Is this something you believe in? Because if you don't do that, then you run the risk of being like I was for many years of, hey guys, here's our culture. I'm going to cram this down your
Right.
throat.
Yeah.
Now, I still do that to a point right now, especially being new at Midway, because everything's brand new.
Right.
But there is a part of that, the whatever pillars, I want them to give me a couple, give me one. Like you guys get to
Yeah.
choose to be a part of this. But I think that's a great activity that we could possibly do.
Yeah. You know, that brings up as a young coach when I was at North Mesquite, I had a really good player there. And I won't use names and such, but he was one of the better players in Dallas. And he was kind of a knucklehead, you know. I had to get him out of scrapes with teachers and, you know, and so on and so forth. And, you know, in hindsight, you know, I was telling someone not too long ago that I really semi-crippled that kid. And thank goodness that he coaches now. And we've talked recently within the last 4 or 5 years, had dinner, and he's a different person, and well, he's matured and found his faith. You know, I had to apologize to him, you know, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. You know, apologizing for, you know, kind of getting you out of scrapes and such, whereas I probably should have let you, you know, which as a young coach, you're thinking more of, well, if we don't
Need
have
him on the
him,
floor. I
yeah,
just need this guy on the floor no
right,
matter what.
yeah. So as we mature and we see the bigger picture, I talk to our guys all the time now about seeing the forest and not the tree. And I think in D3, where I coach now at Howard Payne, I think that's important. You know, 99.99.99% of the kids that you coach at a certain level, you know, aren't going to play past college and such. And, you know, obviously there's a fine line. You've got to have that desire when you know, about becoming better and being the best you can and having dreams and so on. But, you know, you got to be able to see the forest, you know, and we tell them all the time in recruiting that, you know, when you're 28, 29, 30, you know, when the balls stop bouncing, that alarm's going to go off at 6:30 in the morning, and you're going to have to get up and go to work somewhere. And here's your opportunity to pick and choose relatively, you know, what you want to do for a living, because that's going to be the majority of your life, you know, and such. So we want them to be able to see that. And I'm glad that young man I was talking about kind of matured into that and such.
Appreciate you sharing that, because I do think it's something that I don't care young or old. I think we struggle with is holding the line, disciplining, especially our best players. And so my question to you is, what is the balance? You felt like with that player that you let him off the hook too much and like you said, crippled him. But what is the balance between going to bat for your players and helping them, but then also allowing for natural consequences to take its course with players?
Yeah, you know, I think as a, you know, as a parent, you know, I've got grandkids now, two daughters, and you know, as a parent, I think you kind of naturally learn some of that, you know, and so on, and um, you know, I always kind of feel like I'm, you know, a stepdad, so to speak, or, you know, I'm the dad there, you know, especially at the college level when parents aren't there, you know, there has to be some sort of, you know, strong male figure or whatever the case is for those guys. And, you know, so it's just a natural deal. You know, first of all, you said something a little bit before about coming in and demanding and so on. I think that's huge about coming in and, developing a relationship and showing them you love them, and then they're going to let you, you know, coach them relatively how you want to at that point and such. And I think a lot of young coaches kind of have it backwards. They come in and demand and you know, they don't get near the results when it comes to that. You know, so I think you have to develop a relationship with the kids and And I think, I'm not a great basketball coach, Matt, but I think I do a pretty good job with that, developing relationships with kids. And, so I think you have to do that. And then you just have to talk to them about, hey, what's right and what's wrong. We're going to do the right things. We're not going to cut corners. We're not going to do this. And I tell them that story about that young man. Hey, I did this back when I was a young coach, and, years later, I'd never do that again. So you got to talk consequences and because all that is life. We all know as coaches that athletics is a microcosm of life, and that's going to happen to them. I mean, when they're fathers or whatever the case is, or they're in charge of a group of people. So anyway, I don't know if that answered the question, but
No, it did. It did. I do think, again, I think it's a balance. And what are some areas where I think the word grace gets thrown around too much and probably in the wrong way, but where are some areas where we can help them and guide them towards making better decisions? And then what are areas where we need to hold the line? I think there's a little bit of the art of it that maybe comes over time. But what's funny is I wrote down the word trust because you were talking about relationships. Relationships build trust. And I think an error that it could be younger coaches, but I'm talking to myself right now. This is my 19th year, and I don't have it all figured out. Anybody that's ever listened to this knows for darn sure that I don't. But I made the mistake this summer with a couple of these guys at Midway of demanding or expecting trust from them right at the beginning, right when I got there.
yeah.
And was surprised when I didn't get it. But then it's almost like I had to zoom out, take a step back and realize, well, Matt, you're asking for something that isn't built that way.
All right.
Trust takes time. Trust, especially I think in today's society where the phone can tell you so many different messages right off the bat. It's hard to know who to trust. It's
Right.
hard to know what information is right and what's not. And so here's this guy that just comes into Waco out of nowhere and is acting like that they should trust him already. I made mistakes, and now I'm going back around in the fall of this first year and going back to square one. 10-minute meeting, man. Tell me about your family.
All right.
Oh, that's awesome. Who's your favorite sports hero? And I'm getting to know them, and they get to ask me questions, and then I can then trust happens. But coach, I mean, at what point? I don't know when I'll get it. Maybe one day.
Oh, I think you will because you know how, and good coaches know how to work with people, whether it be, alumni, whether it be parents, whether it be kids, whether it be older, younger, whatever the case is. They just know how, and it's kind of like the kids can sense. They're obviously kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for a lot of times, and they can sense sincerity, and they can sense guys that are speaking from the heart, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the things I always try to do. And maybe it's something I've grown into as an older coach or whatever. Is just kind of uh, tell the truth, but be as sincere as possible. And again, if you've developed that trust that you're talking about, the kids are going to accept it, and they're going to, really just kind of accept it a lot better, and such. So
Craig Groeschel was the pastor that I was thinking of. He wrote the book Winning the War in Your Mind. That's a great book, but he also hosts a leadership podcast. It's not his leadership podcast isn't necessarily faith-based like when he preaches at his church, but Craig Groeschel's leadership podcast is incredible. I think this talk about trust is really where I got some of these ideas from him was when I was a player, I think for the most part, we still, as young people, still trusted adults. Like Coach Thomas, I didn't know him very well, but he's an adult, he's a coach. I'm going to trust that what he's saying is true. And I think that has changed and eroded a little bit more and more. And what Craig said was that today's generation, for the first time ever, they immediately distrust. So not like, I'm not really sure about this guy, but I'm going to give him a chance, or I already trust him because I've been told that. They're starting from a standpoint of, I don't know you, therefore I distrust you. Because of and I think that's important for us as coaches to know that instead of like myself in the summer, just expecting for them to do that, I need to know from us that most of these younger players today already have distrust. Okay, if that's where our starting point is, then how do we build that? Like, and it kind of goes back to what you said about relationships. We got to be really intentional with that.
Right. It's funny you say that about they don't trust, you know, it's because they have so many coaches now. And I'm talking
Too many
about,
voices.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about at home. I'm talking about, just everywhere, everyone feels like they, you know, and obviously they are entitled to an opinion and such, but for whatever reason, and whether, you know, the AAU deal or, whatever the case is, and all the, trainers and so on. And I'm not bashing on any of that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there are a lot of people in these kids' ears and such. And, a lot of times for the, uh, like yourself and the guys you played with in high school, Bracy and Duran and so on, in today's world, the 30 games that y'all play at the Colony High School weren't the most important 30 in their lives, which is
And good
sad,
point.
unfortunate, you know, and so I just think that back in your day and in my day, someone that said hey, they're a coach, man, you automatically stood a little straighter and, got quiet and not, and stuff like that and such. But I just think they hear it so much and get opinions from TV, from radio, from, this, that, and the other, and
The
so on and
phone.
so forth.
Yeah.
Everyone's an expert.
Yeah.
It's hard to decipher, I think, sometimes, especially if you're telling them things that you're not blowing wind at them, like sometimes they hear, you know.
I think one of the most courageous things we can do is be truth tellers.
Yeah,
And when we tell the truth, obviously it needs to truth and love. All right. Like there needs to be love involved with that. And I feel like when you tell the truth, you are showing them that you love them. But you nailed something right there about all of the different voices that players have. And it can be family members, it can be trainers, it can be their select coaches. It can also just be what they see on social media and
absolutely.
what they're reading and all of the hype about other players. That comparison game really, I
Yeah,
think, is plaguing players a ton. But again, we can try to stand alone in our high school gyms and demand that they take our games and say, "Hey, this is the most important. Forget all the other stuff you do." I don't know, coach. I think we're going to lose that battle.
yeah,
So instead, if let's map out all the stakeholders that this player has. Obviously, his parents and that support system most important. So we got to bring those stakeholders into the our vision, right, for what is best for the player. And then I've seen this, especially the last 10, 15 years, players having a very, what's the word? Protective feeling or attitude towards their trainers and their select coaches.
yeah,
So when I was at Naaman Forest and I was blasting, this was with Jeff Clarkson back in 2005, I was blasting their select coaches, telling players, we got to reteach you because of all the bad stuff that you've learned from them. Like literally what I would say that, coach, that's a great way to fracture
yeah.
relationships today.
I agree.
So it's not, I think what we can do is, yes, this is important, but so is your skill coach.
Yeah,
So is your select team. I want to know about those things. Hey, invite me to a practice. I want to come watch a workout.
right,
And what are some things that you're doing with him that you really like that we could do in our gym? I
right.
think that's how we bring them together. And this is taking me time because I think most coaches are territorial. Maybe even from another sport at the school. Like, hey,
Right.
you're basketball guys. Those are my guys. No, they're not. I have them for a portion of the day, and then at night they go other places, and they're their guys. So I don't know. Maybe that helps a little bit. Find out all the stakeholders, and then find a way to bring them together so the player feels like we're all on the same team.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.